Josh? Black. Okay. All right. So yesterday, hopefully you watched the video, but just a quick review. These notes are on Canvas, and we just looked at kind of the makeup of Congress. You know, just the different demographics, and we talked about women, which that's all we have in here. Okay. Religion, their basic salaries, and so forth. There's a good breakdown of stuff on page 73 in your book. Kind of the timeline of them taking office, and then how you get into committees, okay? And so we'll be spending some time in committees, more on committees here and there, okay? It is really integral to how Congress functions are these committees, okay? But before we move on past these, I want to talk about conference committees. I did joint yesterday, usually clerical, not political and stuff like that. But conference committees are a major part of how a bill becomes a law, okay? So guys, anytime they're going to tax us or spend our money, which house must it start in? It's supposed to start in the House of Representatives. That goes back to the colonial era, okay, that we learned about, all right? So it's got to start in the House. So let's say, I'm just going to talk about conference committees here real quick. Okay, so let's say you get Joe Biden as president, Democrats control the House, Nancy Pelosi is the speaker, and let's say the Republicans hold on to one of those two seats in Georgia. Okay, so the Republicans control the Senate. All right, so we'll see what happens. But let's say Joe Biden said he wanted to raise taxes. Okay, so Nancy Pelosi puts forth the tax bill. It's got to start in the House. Okay, and they're going to raise taxes on people making over $250,000, and they're going to raise them 15%. Okay, that bill passes the House, party line vote. Okay, all the Democrats vote for it, all the Republicans vote against it. It passes, just majority. Okay, now they're going to send this bill over to the Senate. Okay, now the rules in the Senate are a lot different. Okay, we are going to discuss it here. Okay. And so the senators controlled by Republicans, they're like, I mean, it could be dead on arrival. Like, there's no way we're passing this. Or they say, okay, we'll cooperate. We want to get some more revenue for the government. So we're going to pass our own tax increase bill, but we're going to say 5% on those earning over $250,000.
Can you turn the camera towards that?
Is it on there now?
No.
What do you want?
Turn it towards where you're writing.
It is. It's following me.
Yeah, I can see it like that. So.
I think my thing is frozen.
It's just following him. We're good. We're good.
It's not
Don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Okay,
it's just
back
Ashley.
over here with me.
It's not working.
Sam says it's working.
I'll send a picture to you, Ashley. I think it's Ashley. Yeah, it's not.
Ashley.
It's just Ashley. You're fine.
Hi, Ashley. Can you see it now?
I think my Wi-Fi is broken.
Okay. Well, I can hear you, so it's not broken. Okay. So Senate says 5%. Okay. Now, this passes. Okay. This passes 70 to 30 in the Senate. Okay. You get bipartisan support for this tax increase. Yeah.
So they can just like reform the thing that the House passed through and change it to 5%?
Oh yeah, they can change it.
If they're like, as long as there's something that's there from the House?
Yeah, they're using that House bill as a starting point. You guys, it always changes. I mean, very rarely will you see a House bill sent to the Senate that doesn't change. Because senators have their own opinions. And, you know, they're a little bit more elitist than the House members. They're in the elite club of 100. And the rules in the Senate are much looser than they are in the House, and I'll get through that, okay? So they come up with 5%. Okay, two separate bills have passed, two separate houses. What do you send to the president? To sign. You can't, the same exact bill has to pass both houses to send it to the president. So you use a conference committee, okay? So you're going to set now, this is going to start in the House Ways and Means Committee, which deals with taxes, okay? That's where the committee, the bill originated in committee, in the House Ways and Means Committee. They sent it to the full House, they voted on it at that. Okay? So you're gonna take members of that Ways and Means Committee and send them to a conference committee with the Senate Budget Committee. This started in the Senate Budget Committee. And these members are gonna get together in what's called a conference committee. Okay? From both houses. And their job is to do what?
Negotiate.
Compromise. Okay? So what's a good compromise between 15 and 5? 10. Okay. Now, can the conference committee send this to the president? No. It's got to go back to the House, got to go back to the Senate, and be voted on again. The exact same language. So you got version 1, version 2, version 3. Yes.
You might have answered this question, I forgot. Are the committees like the same, like this Democrat still majority in the House and Republican still majority in the Senate?
That would be the case here, yeah. If Republicans win one of those two seats. Okay? So this is one of the major parts of how a bill becomes a law that we'll come back to, but I figured getting it twice would be good. Okay? So you've got select committees, which are temporary, joint committees, which are between both houses, and conference committees, which are both. So it fixes problems between two versions of a bill. Okay? And a lot of times, guys, they know these bills are going to conference committee, so they will pass them even though they know there's mistakes in them. You know, like there's problems with the bill that'll be fixed in conference. Okay, it's just part of the process. Right, and when we go over how a bill becomes a law, I like to use the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare and how it passed in 2009 as the example, because it's got so many good pieces to it that help you understand the whole process. Okay, I'll go through that at the end of how Obamacare became law. Okay, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so now we get some pretty light stuff, right? So like terms, qualifications, and stuff like that. So actually, I'm going to move this back over here if that's all right with you. Okay, and I'm going to throw this down. Now, you guys at home, do you have these notes pulled up? Do you need me to leave this on here?
No,
Not
I
to
haven't
even
pulled up.
read it? Huh?
I haven't pulled up.
Yep. Okay, that's one.
I also
Yeah,
have,
I think we're good.
Okay, I'm just
I
gonna
have them
keep this
printed
on
off
because-
too.
Yeah, all right, so House of Representatives, we'll start with the House. Okay, 2-year terms, okay, how many members are there? 435, okay, and so every 2 years, all 435 are up for election. All 435 of these seats are open, okay? So you could literally drain the swamp, and get rid of all of them. Okay, you can't do that in the Senate. Or a favorite term the political science uses is throw the bums out. Okay, you could conceivably get 435 new members. Chances of that happening, 0. Okay, now how old do you have to be? 25. Now that young is 35. 37 is not the case anymore. I think we have AOC is not 37. She might be in her late 20s, maybe 30. Okay, and then I think there was another 20-something elected this time around. Okay, so but you just have to be 25. Okay, you have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be a natural-born U.S. citizen. No, just for 7 years. Okay, and we've had a lot of people that were not born here that have served in Congress. And some really good ones. Okay, so it's really something that anybody can do. That's a citizen. Okay, as I told Lily, you can be anything you want in this country, except for President of the United States. Okay, so that's the Constitution. All right, you have to live not just in the state that you represent, but the district you represent. So Ron Estes has to live in this district, be elected from this district. Okay. With the Senate, you just got to live in the state. Okay. So Those are your qualifications. You don't have to have a degree. Okay? You don't even have to have a high school diploma. There's no other qualification. All right? Okay, so all 435 up for each election, okay, every 2 years. The first Congress in 1790 had 65 members, okay? And we're going to be doing some math here, all right? So in 1910, they increased the number to the current number of 435, okay? Now, I just happen to know this because I teach history. In 1910, there were 91 million people living in the United States after the census, okay? Guys, we're just getting the census now for 2020, all right? So if you divide 435 into 91 million, you get 209,000 people. So each representative would represent basically 209,000 people, okay? By, this is now, not now, but this is from 2000, no, 1990 this would have been, okay? You divide 435 in there, okay? So let me do this. So 2010, you're looking at 330 million people, okay? Divided by 435, and you get 787,000. So this means we are becoming further and further away from our members of the House because we have to compete with more people to get their attention. You know what I mean? So now with the new census, and I'm thinking somewhere around 350 million, okay, in the United States. Now, I should tell you this because the Supreme Court right now, the U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments from the Trump administration that with this census, they should only count U.S. citizens, not people. Okay? And this is political, but guys, how many people live in your state determines so much when it comes to representation, when it comes, remember we talked about federal grants, block grants? Those block grants, the money that's coming from the federal government to the states is based on your population a lot of times. So the more people you count in your state, the more money you get from the federal government, okay? And the electoral college, okay, which is based on the representation, okay? So the stakes are high here. It's going to be really interesting to see this new census and whether, first of all, whether Kansas retains its 4 seats. We may lose a seat. We may be down to 3, and then down to 5. I mean, Kansas is barely relevant now. Will be that less relevant if we lose another seat. Okay? And if you do, you're going to have to redraw. Instead of having 4 districts, you're only going to have 3, and somebody's going to be the odd person out.
Or like when do we not have states?
Oh, we used to have more. We used to have 8. Go back and look like 30 years ago. We've been losing. Okay, so every 10 years with the census, and this map's really good. It may be hard to see over there on the other side of the room. It's supposed to follow me. Come on, Swivel. Do your job. All right. So if you look here, this is after the 2010 census, so 10 years ago. New York lost 2. Okay, so if you look at that number, 787,000 people, that means New York lost roughly 1.5 million people out of the state. And nearly 1.5 million people moved to Florida. About 3 million people, Texas picked up 4 seats, okay, which is the size of Kansas. 4 million people moved to Texas. Okay, and you notice the trend is the South gaining seats, the North, especially the Northeast, losing. A lot of that's over economics. New York is over economics and taxes. It's really high taxes. insane, okay? So, this is known as the Rust Belt. So all those jobs that went away, you know, with NAFTA, trade, and building stuff overseas instead of Pennsylvania, Ohio, you lose population. Okay? Plus, you have the snowbirds, an aging population that moves south to get warm. Yeah. The North American Free Trade Agreement. President Trump renegotiated that deal with Mexico and Canada. That's one of the things he campaigned on, and one of the things he did. And it benefits American manufacturers. It really benefits America. So those jobs are harder to leave the country. Okay, so Arizona, the West, you see picking up some seats here. Louisiana is the only southern state that lost a seat, and that is mainly because of Hurricane Katrina. New Orleans was devastated. So a lot of people left Louisiana, went to Houston, went to Atlanta. Okay. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think Texas again will pick up seats. I think Arizona will pick up a seat. Florida will pick up a seat, at least one. I think Illinois will lose another seat. I think New York will lose more seats. And I do think California may, for the first time in decades, lose a seat. Okay. Some political scientists believe that Arizona flipped to Biden because so many Californians left and moved there. A lot of them are there. Okay. And that's what's kind of making Texas in play a little bit, is all the people moving there. Okay. So they have billboards in Texas. Welcome to Texas, don't bring your Democratic politics with you. You're leaving the state, you're leaving for a reason. Don't change ours. Okay. So Kansas, I don't know what's going to happen. Whether we'll maintain board seats or not. So the census is huge. Now, I don't think Trump's going to win that lawsuit. For 200 years, since 1790, we've included everybody in the census. Okay. Now, some people that are here illegally don't fill out the census. You understand? Because they don't want to be fined. You know what I mean? Although in some states they were really encouraging everybody to do the census because that means money. Okay, it means representation. Okay, so although each state is guaranteed one, so even your least populated states, which include Wyoming and Alaska, are your most least populated states. They're guaranteed one. Okay. Now, is that fair if there's only 600,000 people in Wyoming, and every other state has, 780,000 that count for an elector? Okay. Is Wyoming overrepresented? The answer to that probably is yes. Okay, they are overrepresented. But that's the way they wrote the Constitution, the Electoral College. The states have a say, not so much the people, it's the states that get a say in the election. Okay, so, yeah. So now, how these lines are drawn, okay, it's a source of great debate and consternation, and this is called gerrymandering. Okay, have you heard about this before, gerrymandering? Not much? Okay. Let's do something fun. And here, and I need to get to a white screen. Maybe I just go to the end of the notes and get a white screen. Yeah. Oh. I'm going to erase this as it goes up. Don't spoil it. Did this in my regular classes yesterday. Beautiful. Yeah. That's going to bug somebody. Okay. Kind of an odd shape. It's not a cherry. What is it? It's an apple. Describe the apple. Okay, more. It's big. New York City. Okay, now. All right, so look at New York City. All right, I'm gonna put this here. Okay, can you name some of the boroughs in New York City? Manhattan. The Bronx, where the Yankees play. Bronx Bombers. Huh? Staten? How about Long? Just making one. Long Island. Okay, and then you got like Chinatown. Harlem. And we'll call this Little Italy. And then we got some Puerto Rican stuff like that. Yeah. All right. Now, we're going to go on a scavenger hunt. New York City. What you got to find in New York City is a Republican. Yeah. Okay. There are some Republicans there, yes? But it's heavily Democratic. Okay. Now, there's about 8 million people in New York City. Okay. So they're going to have 10 districts. Who gets to draw these lines? So during the census, you're going to have people moving from different places out of New York into New York. So the population is going to change. And so when they draw these districts, they're going to have roughly 800,000 people in each district. That make sense? Who gets to draw the lines? Who gets to draw the district? The state legislature in most states. Okay? The capital of New York is Albany, New York. Okay? You need to know that for history. Okay? Now, who controls the state legislature in Albany? Democrats or Republicans? Democrats. So who gets to draw the line? Democrats. Okay? So, if you were to look for a Republican in the city of New York, which borough would you most likely find a Republican?
The smallest one.
Where is Wall Street? Manhattan, where a lot of the wealth is. You know, Fifth Avenue and, you know, Madison Avenue. And, yeah, a lot of wealth, which brings probably more Republicans, right? Not necessarily, but chances are you're going to find more Republicans in Manhattan, okay? So the Democrats are going to try and create 10 districts and no Republicans, okay? And this is called gerrymandering, right? So what you do is Harlem, which is heavily African American, and as we know, African American, heavily Democrat. You take a little piece of Brooklyn, which is some Harlem in there, and then you take a nice chunk of Manhattan out. Okay, and so these Republicans that may live here are outnumbered over here, and you got your Democratic district. Okay, we got to get some more here. Take some more Harlem, get a good chunk of Bronx. Okay, take another chunk of Manhattan, you got your Democratic district. Okay, well, we need one more. Okay, so let's take a little more Harlem, get a big chunk of Brooklyn, and the rest of there Manhattan, you got a Democratic district. Now, if you want to elect an African-American Democrat, you can concentrate your strength in Harlem, okay? Take a little bit of Queens, a little bit of Chinatown, and you get you a Democrat that's African-American. This is gerrymandering. And guys, come 2021, all 435 seats are gonna have to be reapportioned. That includes in Kansas. What's the fastest growing county in Kansas? Johnson County. Which, yes, is that Kansas City area where the racetrack is and all that stuff up there, okay? So we're gonna have to redraw these. Okay, right now, there's about 713,000 people living in each one of these districts, but it's been 10 years, we have to redraw these. Who controls the state legislature in Kansas? Republicans. In fact, they have a supermajority now. Okay, so they can, now we have one Democrat here, Sharice Davis. Okay, they can gerrymander her out of a job if they want to. Okay, they can redraw these districts in such a way. Okay. Not in Kansas. In some states, the governor has to approve the gerrymandering or the redrawing, the reapportionment. In California, where they have 53 districts, guys, they had so many issues with this that they set up a citizens council to draw the district. Okay, and boy, was that a mess. Okay, because they redrew drastically. And so what you had after they did that, you had like two Democrats now living in the same district. So they had to run against each other. People lost their jobs. It was horrible. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely do some funny shenanigans with this, okay? Now, the Supreme Court says that extreme cases of gerrymandering is unconstitutional, okay? Let me pull up this slide here. Now, this is from my regular class. Let me just go over a couple of things. Okay, so this is the current map of Kansas. It said about 713,000 people in each one, okay? So you can see this is the third district, okay, here. It's very small. It's just heavily densely populated. The second district actually comes out further here, and then here's your fourth district, okay, and the big one. All right, so they can gerrymander her out of a job, okay, if the Republicans want to, okay. Now this seat has actually gone back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. Here's the thing about gerrymandering, guys. Of the 435 seats that we know right now, only about 80 of them are competitive. We know who's going to win the first district of Kansas. Republicans going to win that seat, no matter what. Okay? We know who's going to win the fourth district. Okay? So does Ron Estes have to worry about his job in the next decade? Not really. Okay? And maybe that's not healthy. Maybe he needs to worry about it. You know, he needs to listen to his constituents. Pay attention to what we want, okay? So if only about 80 of these are competitive, is that healthy for the United States? It is if you're in control. Now, when you look at the 2020 election at state legislature, okay, Republicans did very well. And if you, I mean, even in the House of Representatives, I know the Republicans didn't take back control of the House. They weren't expected to, but they did much better than people thought they were going to do. The Democrats have lost, I think, around 15 seats. Okay. But at the state legislature level, Republicans took control of two state legislatures in this election, New Hampshire and another state, and maintained control of the states they already had. Democrats did not flip any state legislature, which is huge because it's a census year. So, like I said, in most states it's the state legislature. Sometimes the governor has to approve it. Sometimes there's big fights over it. Okay, and let me go ahead and tell you the story. Okay, in Texas, you remember how we talked about how the South flipped from blue to red? Okay, back in the 90s. Okay, well, it took a little bit longer for the state legislatures to flip. Okay, so it was into the 2000s when Texas flipped the state legislature in, what's the capital of Texas? Austin, okay. Now the Republicans control Austin. So when 2010 happened, okay, they got to redraw. How many? 36 districts. The Republicans had their chance for the first time in 100 years to redraw the districts to favor Republicans. Okay, and the Democrats were outraged. So much so that they refused to have a quorum. So if I could draw Texas, draw it. But I don't think I can. Okay. This is going to go like this. Down here, down here, down here, little thing here. Over there. Back to here. And up here. Ooh. That's awful. Okay, what's this? Oklahoma, right? And then over here, over there, you got New Mexico, right? Okay, so the capital's here, Austin. All right, so the Republicans redraw the lines. This is 2010. Okay, Democrats are outraged. So there's something called a quorum. You guys know what a quorum is? It's like a certain number of people have to be present to have a meeting. So when I'm with the Whispering Brook Homeowners Association, if you're going to have a meeting and you're going to change the bylaws or anything, a certain number of houses have to be present to change the bylaws. Okay. In a lot of state legislatures, a quorum would mean more than half or a certain number have to be present to do business. So this is what happened. All the Democrats in the state legislature fled the state to New Mexico so that the Republicans couldn't pass the new district. They couldn't pass the bill because there wasn't a quorum. Okay, well, why did they leave the state? One of the things I talked about yesterday in the notes was the sergeant at arms. I know it says OAT in your notes. Sergeant at arms, okay? Within the state, the sergeant at arms can compel members to the floor of the chambers in the state legislature by force if necessary. The sergeant at arms over the U.S. Congress can compel members to the floor if there's a quorum call. They can go down to the end of the hall and bring them to the floor, or they can get on a plane and fly to New Mexico and grab them and bring them back to Washington, D.C. The sergeant at arms has jurisdiction in all 50 states. The sergeant at arms of Texas legislature only has jurisdiction where? In Texas. So the Democrats all fled to hotels just on the other side of the border. So the Republicans couldn't vote. Now, so the Republicans, okay, we'll compromise, come back. So they compromised a little bit, they came back, and the Democrats still weren't happy. So this time, as Democrats do, they spread the wealth, and they went to Oklahoma, fled the state. Same thing happened in Wisconsin in 2010, where the Republicans took control of the legislature and the Democrats fled the state. I think it's kind of fun, you know. So that's that role of the sergeant at arms. He can force members to come to the floor and has jurisdiction nationally. Yeah.
That happened when was it years Amy was trying to approve? You said the Democrats didn't show up.
Yeah, a quorum in the United States Senate is 51. So you didn't have to have the Democrats there. But I think in the state legislature it's higher than that. That's why with the Democrats fleeing, they were able to shut things down for a little bit. Okay. Eventually, Republicans got most of what they wanted. Okay. Elections have consequences. Yeah. Fled the state, not that I'm aware of. Okay, and right now, of the 50 states, I think Republicans control 31 of the state legislatures. Okay, so this really puts Republicans in good shape for 2022 with redistricting, reapportionment. Okay. Okay, some other things I want to show you here that are important and relevant is this. Okay, wouldn't it be just easier in Kansas if we drew the districts like this? Nice and simple rectangles. Now, would this be unfair to the people over here in the east or unfair to the people over here in the west? Well, there's like 10 people that live over here, right? And one of them is your member of Congress. So you're like buddies with the guy, okay? Over here, you got a lot more population competing for the interests of that one person. Guys, for many decades in this country, you had districts with huge population disparities, okay? In Georgia, for instance, they basically drew a district around the city of Atlanta and gave them one representative with more than 1 million people living. And then the other districts would have, maybe 100,000 people. That's totally unfair. It's not equal representation. So that really didn't change till 1964. Okay, the Supreme Court case, Westbury versus Sanders, okay, where they said one person, one vote, where each district has to have roughly the same number of people. Okay, and that makes our political process a lot more fair. Okay, because doing it the other way is just not right. But a lot of things we were doing up until the 1960s were not. Okay, so those are kind of some neat discussions on gerrymandering. Now, where does this term come from? Okay, it comes from the actual governor of Massachusetts. Okay, named Elbridge Gerry. Okay, Elbridge Gerry got to draw the map back in 1811 of Massachusetts. He was a Democrat, and he drew the districts to favor the Democratic Party. And there was a newspaper guy that looked at that one of those districts on a map. Said, that looks like a salamander. So they put the two words together, Jerry and Mandarin, okay, make it a verb, okay, and call it gerrymandering. Political science term is born. Okay, it's crazy. All right. Now, Elbridge Gerry is actually pretty famous. He's one of the anti-federalists, like Patrick Henry. In fact, he's one of the authors of the Anti-Federalist Papers. Okay, so he's a pretty influential guy. Yeah, that's where this comes from. All right, now look at this district down here in Louisiana. Is this an extreme case of gerrymandering? This district was drawn by Democrats in Louisiana to elect an African American. These are all heavily African American areas. Look at this. Like, you've got this little thing coming down here. I mean, it's crazy, right? And there's districts like this all over the United States. So, extreme cases, if this wasn't unconstitutional, I don't know what was or what is. Okay, so pretty much they can do what they want. Okay, so there's going to be lots of political fights over there. Okay, but Joe Biden, if he becomes president, which I think he's probably going to be, is going to be dealing most likely with a Republican House in 2022, because that usually happens anyways. It happened to Clinton, it happened to Bush, it happened to Obama, it happened to Trump. Okay, it happened to all of them. After 2 years in office, the Congress flipped to the other party, or at least one of the two. Right? Yeah.
Was this the last time parties have been sold president?
Trump in 2016 to 2018, and then you had the blue wave, 2018. Republicans held on to the Senate, but took back the House. Okay. When Obama was elected in 2008, this is the only way he got Obamacare through. they control both houses. Bush, you know, he got some tax cuts in. It's kind of impressive that Trump got tax. Well, no, he had both houses in 2016, so he got tax cuts. Bush, after 2 years, lost at Clinton. It was a red wave. I mean, it was a Republican revolution in 1994. Because Republicans hadn't held both houses in 40 years prior to that day in 1994. So it's been pretty consistent. Okay, so Republicans should look for a good year in 2022. They, you know, a lot's going to be based on these 2 Senate seats, guys. I'm telling you, man, this is huge. The Democrats win both those seats. They control both houses. They pass whatever they want. Democrats pass whatever they want. Okay. Now, you do have the filibuster in the Senate, which I'm going to talk about. Okay, where you have 60 votes. If you don't have 60 votes, you can pretty much stop legislation in the Senate. Okay, unless they do away with the filibuster, which we've had for over 150 years. Okay, I'll get into that. I promise. How much time do I have? Yeah. What did I have? Notes here. So let me scroll back up here and just kind of tip you off on where we're going next. Okay. So we did gerrymandering. Okay. These are some delegates, representatives that can't vote. So some of our territories, Guam, American Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, D.C., and then Puerto Rico has a resident commissioner. They can vote in committee, they can debate, they can't vote for a bill. Okay? And that's it. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to start in on the leadership. We've already talked some about the Speaker of the House and kind of the authority that they have, which is enormous. Okay, we'll get over to the Senate side and look at some of the other leadership positions and what their roles are tomorrow. Okay, Thursday, and if we're not here, I'll be in here doing it live. I'll go live if you want, and I'll send out a notification. You guys can ask questions. Cool. We had 5 today.
Why wouldn't we be here?
Snowstorm, my friend. Snowstorm, 3 to 5 inches.
Well, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.
I think it'll melt by then. You guys have
One
a great
can
day.
always hope.
Yes, you can always hope. Bye, guys.
Bye.
That's right.